Hello everybody, welcome back to another video here. This is Mr. Barry. We're still in section 8.5. We're just going to hit on the second part of that today. So the second part of 8.5 is factoring by grouping. Okay, now just to kind of recap from yesterday's material. Okay, if you were given the expression like 8p squared minus 2p. Okay, and then we were finding the greatest common factors is what we were doing yesterday. All right, so if I want to find the greatest common factor of this expression, okay, obviously I look at the numbers first, and my greatest common factor that I can factor out of there is a positive 2. Now, then I go back and look at my variables. Can I pull out a variable out of both of those uh, terms? Yes, I can. I can pull out a p as well. Right? And then if you'll remember from yesterday, I divide to get what is left in parentheses. Right? So I've got 8 divided by 2, which is going to give me 4. And then if I look at my exponents, so I've got p squared, and then p to the first. If I subtract those, I just get p. And then negative 2p divided by negative 2 is just minus 1. And the p's would cancel. Okay, so that's what we did yesterday. But we're going to look at today what happens whenever we cannot pull out that GCF of 2p. Okay, go. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this example here. Okay, so here we have an expression with 4 terms, and first of all, you want to see if you can pull out a GCF, a greatest common factor. Okay, so if I'm looking at all of these, okay, let's just start with the number 2. 2 is a pretty common one. Okay, 64 is divisible by 2. 8 is divisible by 2. 56 is, but 7 is not. Okay, so 2 is not going to work. How about 3? Well, is 3 going to go into 7? No. Okay, so I can't pull out a 3 either. So how about a 4? Obviously, it's not going to work for the negative 7 either. Okay, so then if you cannot pull out a or a coefficient, okay, you want to look and see if you can pull out any variables. Right? So if I'm looking at the first one, okay, I've got an m cubed, m squared, an m, but here there's no m. So I cannot factor out anything from this expression. I can't pull out a GCF. Okay, so what we need to do is factor by grouping now. Okay, so to factor by grouping, all you're going to do is you're basically going to cut this expression in half. Okay, by using parentheses. Okay, so you should have 2 sets of parentheses, and now you're going to factor each set of parentheses. You're going to find the greatest common factor of each parentheses. Okay, so if I'm looking at the first one here, okay, I've got 64m cubed minus 8m squared. Okay, so I want to ask myself, what coefficient could I pull out of there for a greatest common factor? Well, if I look at that, I know that 64 is divisible by 8, so 8 is the biggest thing I could pull out of there. Okay, now I want to go ahead and look at my variables, right? So I've got m cubed and then m squared. So the lowest m that I can pull out of there is m squared. Okay, now that I've found the GCF of that set of parentheses, now I go back and I divide to figure out what is left in a set of parentheses. Okay, so 64 divided by 8 is 8. Okay, then m cubed divided by m squared is going to give me m to the first power, or just m. Excuse me. Now, go to the next one. So I'm looking at negative 8 divided by 8, which is negative 1. And my m squareds will cancel. Okay, so that just goes away. So that is my new parenthesis. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky, but we know that we're going to have another set of parentheses out here, right? And we want this set of parentheses here, we want that to equal whatever we got here. Okay, so this over here needs to say 8m minus 1. Okay, now we have to figure out a way to do that. Okay, so if I look at this whole part of the expression, okay, look at the coefficients. What number could I pull out of both of those terms? Obviously, looking like a 7. Okay, let's actually do a different color. 7. Okay, now, whenever can I pull out an m out of there? Well, that one has an m, but the 7 does not, so I cannot pull out an m. So now I can just go ahead and divide. So 56 divided by 7 is 8, and then bring down the m. And then negative 7 divided by 7 is negative 1. Okay, so now whenever we get to this point, you should notice that your sets of parentheses, your new sets of parentheses, are the same. So both of them say 8m minus 1. Okay, so that is actually going to become your new factor, right? So 8m minus 1 in parentheses. Okay, and now we know that there's going to be another set of parentheses, but where does that come from? Well, what did we factor out right here at the beginning? We factored out an 8m squared. So that's going to just come down here, 8m squared. Okay, and then over here, we factored out a 7 from the second set of parentheses, right? So then that positive 7 comes down here. Okay, and this is going to be your final answer. And now to go back and check our answers, we can go back and FOIL our answers that we got here, so our two binomials. We can go and factor and FOIL those, and we should get what we originally started with up here. Okay, so let's go ahead and FOIL this out and see what we get. So 8m times 8m squared is going to give me 64m cubed. Okay, now I'm going to go outside now. So 8m times 7 is going to give me 56m. Okay, then let's go inside. So negative 1 times 8m squared is negative 8m squared. And I ran out of room, but that is okay. So negative 1 times positive 7 is minus 7. Okay, then if I go ahead and put those in order in standard form, okay, I would have 64m cubed plus 56, no, sorry, minus 8m squared plus 56m minus 7. And now if you'll notice, after I've FOILed that out, it should match this right here. Well, come on now. Yeah. So my answer that I've FOILed out here should match what I started with up here, which indeed it does. 64m cubed minus 8m squared plus 56m minus 7. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at this one. Okay, first of all, you want to see if you can factor out a GCF. Well, when I look at this, okay, 5 looks like a promising thing to factor out here, but I notice a 7 there, and 7 is not divisible by 5. So then I want to go ahead, okay, if I can't factor out a number, okay, I want to see if I can factor out a variable. Well, x cubed, x squared, x, but this one, this negative 5 on the end does not have an x. So I cannot factor out anything from this. I can't pull out a GCF. So now what I need to do is factor by grouping. That's kind of what we're doing today. Okay, so factor by grouping, set it into two sets of parentheses like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and factor each set of parentheses. Right, so if I look at the first set, I can factor out a 5x squared for my GCF. And then I'm left with, okay, let's see, 35x cubed divided by 5x squared is going to give me 7x. Okay, and then 7x. Okay, now I'm going to look over here at negative 25x squared divided by 5x squared, and that's going to give me negative 5, and then the x squareds will cancel. So just minus 5. And that becomes my first new set of parentheses. Okay, now this is where it's going to get kind of tricky. Okay, so if I look at my second set of parentheses here, the 7x minus 5. Okay, at the first look at that, I cannot factor out a GCF. But okay, we can always factor out a 1, the number 1 from any expression. Okay, so if we factor out a 1 there, just treat it like we normally would. We would divide. Okay, so 7x divided by 1 is still 7x. Okay, and then negative 5 divided by 1 is still going to be negative 5. Okay, so if you'll notice now, your parentheses, your new factors, 7x minus 5, those are the same. Okay, so that is going to become our first new factor down here. Okay, so here we go, 7x minus 5. Okay, and then my second factors, where does it come from? Well, I know it's going to be a set of parentheses. So a set of parentheses, and it's the first thing that we factored out here, so 5x squared. 5x squared. And my second one is going to be this 1 that we factored out here, so plus 1. And remember, you can always go back and FOIL our binomials here to go back, and it should equal what you originally started with up here. Okay, last one we're going to look at here. Okay, we first of all look for a GCF. Obviously, it doesn't look like we can pull anything out of there, so I need to factor by grouping. Now, this is where we need to be careful because there is a negative in front of that 5, so that negative needs to be put in that parenthesis. Okay, so now once we break it in half. Okay, here we go. We need to find a GCF of the first set of parentheses. So I can factor out a 7n squared from this. Okay, and then I'm left with just simply n minus 6, right? Because my n squareds will cancel. Okay, now I want my second set of parentheses here to equal n minus 6. Okay, so I have to ask myself, what do I have to divide this expression by here? What do I have to divide it by to get this n minus 6? Okay, so what I actually need to do is I need to divide out a negative 5. Okay, and I'll show you why I do a negative 5 and not just a 5. Okay, so if I divide by negative 5, negative 5n divided by negative 5 is just simply n. And then 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6. Okay, and then you'll notice that your parentheses, your new sets of parentheses, should match up. They should be the same. So that's going to become your first new factor on the next line. Okay, so n minus 6. Okay, and my other set of parentheses, where does it come from? Well, whatever you factored out here first, so 7n squared, and then the other one, which is this one right here, this minus 5. Okay, and that should be your final answer. And now if you want to pause your video to see what I've done is I've FOILed our answer here. I've FOILed those binomials and got the same exact thing that we started with. All right, if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to send me a message. hopefully everything is going well for you guys over the break. Stay safe. Go Braves.